All right. We hopefully are live. We're getting ready to see here, guys. Let us know if you can hear us in the chat okay. We're trying some new technology today, so we just want to make sure that you can hear us okay and that you can see us okay. That tends to help with a video.
I can see you just fine.
You're right there. So this we're doing a couple new things here with some technology and so on, and we just want to make sure that everything is working okay. It says we're live, and just let us know. We have a live chat room going, and
Yes.
You should be able to. Looks like everybody can see us all right, and hear us okay.
Yes,
So
high five. Woo!
sometimes it takes a couple times to get stuff right. So we're going to be talking today about some mistakes that you make as a reseller on eBay. But for those of you new to the channel, I just want to let you know that I am Prof Sales.
And I'm Karen.
And this is the Prof Sales YouTube channel. So we talk about on this channel mindset, reselling, being an entrepreneur, being in business for yourself, inspiration, motivation, and probably some other topics.
Just being a downright good human being. And hey, I have to give a disclaimer before we start. We're talking about mistakes, right? Prof does not make mistakes.
Yes.
No, just kidding. He really, really does.
I make a lot of mistakes.
And so I'm going to have a lot of fun with this show.
Yeah, and we might try too, guys, to, and like I said, we might try to put a couple, like the chat up in the display so you can see the chat. So we're going to try that right now. We're going to see what it looks like. You know, like I said, we're trying a few things. Hopefully it won't be too bad, but you'll be able to see the chat scrolling beside us now, and we're just gonna keep evolving. So
There, I'm just making reference to the chat.
I see what
I'm
you're
not
doing there.
blocking your face, I promise.
All right, so let's jump into this. We got 10 things. See, I did a little switch hand there.
I was hoping you'd make it 11. It
11.
goes to 11.
11. We name that movie if you don't get that reference. So we have 10 things that we want to talk about that we think are mistakes. We've talked about some of these before, but we will, you know, we'll see how we'll see if like we can add shine some new light on some of these, because I think that there's a lot of value in talking about these mistakes, and some of the mistakes are, you know, very common. Others are not as common. Some I've made over and over. Others, I don't know that I've really ever made them too often, but I think a lot of people will identify with these. And if you have other mistakes that you know that you've made or you've seen or you've thought about making, please leave them in the chat. We'll try to shout them out. They're different than these, but let's get through these before you do that, just so you kind of have an idea about the 10 that we're talking about.
And one of the cool things about us sharing mistakes that we've previously made, our intent here is to help you avoid them. You know, some of them are minor and have an easy fix, but some you'll see that if you make said mistake, it could be costly.
Right. No, that's exactly right. That's a great point, Karen. And the first one that we're going to talk about is not understanding shipping cost. This might be the most common one. Mm-hmm. And this is probably the one that I think is the easiest to remedy. First of all, you have to have, well, I'm not going to say you have to have, yes I am. I'm going to say you have to have a scale. You've got to have a scale. They're cheap. You can get for 25 bucks. We even have one down in the link below, but you certainly don't have to get that one. You could get like a cheap scale even from Target or Walmart. You've got to have a scale, guys. If you have a scale, you can take the item that you're selling, the packaging that you're going to ship it in, that's important. The packaging, it counts in the weight too, and put it on the scale. Now, if you're doing like flat rate shipping through USPS, this doesn't really matter as long as it fits in the package and doesn't, you know, go over any of their recommendations. Like I think in padded flat rates, for instance, which we use a lot, it's like 70 pounds, which is quite a bit to put in that little envelope. You'd have to just put metal in there, like slabs of like lead.
Well, we did have somebody in our Facebook group, and I I guess they were serious, but they said they shipped a ship's anchor. You remember that? What did that?
A ship's anchor? Yeah, they did say that.
Remember, it weighed like 40, 50 pounds? I can't really remember.
Yeah, it was something crazy like that.
But that's some serious lead.
But guys, get a scale. When you go to sell something, make sure you know how you're going to ship it. Ship it the cheapest way you can. That's the best for you, the best for the buyer. Put the item, put the packaging, put everything you're going to put on the scale. Sorry, I almost hit you. Woo!
Woo!
And you're going to know the weight. And when you know the weight, you can put the weight into the listing. If you do calculated shipping, it's going to figure out by the weight you put in and the method you put in how much to charge the buyer. If you do free shipping, you can incorporate that cost, like an average cost, or if it's a flat rate, into your listing and to how much you sell it for. So shipping is not a difficult one. Just pick a method that makes sense, as cheap as possible. Will also get it to your buyer as quickly as possible. And I think that way, you're taking care of the buyer, you're taking care of yourself. You don't want to, my goal is not to make money or lose money on shipping. I just want to basically break even on it at the end of the day, accounting for, everything. Go ahead, open it up. She's going to make a big noise.
Today's drink is this one. It's yummy.
That way. And shipping is not something you should really ever lose money on. Now, where people go wrong with this is sometimes they get really big, heavy items that are big and bulky, and then they have to ship them really far away, and it's going to be expensive. And guess what? You should not be paying for that. Your buyer should. They're the ones who want to buy it. You should incorporate that shipping cost either in your selling price or charge calculated shipping. Either way, but you definitely should put that in. Get a scale. It will save you so many headaches. When you go to the post office, you won't have to guess. You won't have to stand in line and get your items weighed and figure out the postage. A scale is just such a cheap, easy way to get it done.
Be proactive on this one. Totally avoidable. This mistake you do not have to make.
Yes, yes. And Skip says, make sure you get one that's instant on. Mine has to boot up. Drives me nuts. Yeah, mine actually does boot up, and it kind of drives me nuts. It doesn't take long. It takes about 5, 6, 7 seconds, but anyway. Number 2. Lack of research for demand. So is your item going to even be sellable? And what I mean by that is there's not a market. Make sure the volume's.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
It's not. Such a rookie. Every time she's got the volume on. Make sure that your item is in demand, because if it's not in demand, guys, it's probably not going to sell. It's not going to sell anytime soon. So you definitely want to make sure that there's a demand for your item. And the way you do that is you look at completeds, you look at solds, you look at kind of the sell-through is, and you can figure out if people really want to get it or not. If they don't want to buy it, it doesn't mean you can't sell it, but it means you might sit on a long, long, long time. I mean, there are some books I know on Amazon, using an Amazon reference here, that have really high ranks, like way up in the millions and millions of ranks. And they'll just sit forever. I mean, they just, that book is probably not, it might not ever sell in your lifetime. and unless you just get that one person who goes through and says, I want that book. So same thing on eBay. If you're selling something that's unique and in the past it's sold, there are services like Terapeak. You can go back and search in the past on eBay. But ultimately, if there's not a lot of demand for it, guys, you're going to sit on a long time. And even though it might be valuable or might have been 10 years ago, like say it's like, I don't know, a video card that people use in their computers 15 years ago. Is it possible somebody's still using that computer out there and wants that specific video card again, even though it's way, way outdated technologically wise? Yes. Is it possible that they're going to buy it from you? Yes. Is it possible they're going to buy it from you anytime soon? Probably not, because there's not a big market for that item. And there's just not a lot. People kind of move on with technology to some degree. Not in every case, but some degree. So researching your demand is really, really important.
Well, and also on the demand for your item, I don't think there's another one on the list that would speak to your emotional attachment to said item. So just because you love it and at some point in your life or your journey it had great value, maybe it even cost you a lot of money.
Yep.
That is not a determining factor necessarily on how much you sell an item for.
Nobody cares that you loved it.
No. Nobody cares that it was the summer of whatever it was the summer of and it was your first whatever or whatever. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. So researching demands is very important. Number 3, improper sales format. Boy, that's a terrible title, I just realized.
I don't even know what the heck that means.
Well, it means this. So auctions work better for some things. Buy it now worked better for some things. I mean, there's different selling strategies for an item. For instance, when you've got a really unique item that's maybe a collectible and there's a lot of interest in it, say it was like a Star Wars figure from the 1970s when the movies first came out, right?
I had those.
Right, a lot of people did. So, but a lot of them have disappeared over the years. Say you've got some still in the box. That might be a good item to auction off because it's unusual. Like finding those originals still in the box is getting harder and harder because it was a lot of years ago. A lot of them disappeared over the years, and so things like that are likely to get a lot of interest, a lot of watchers, and a lot of bids is always a great thing for an auction. There's some other exceptions. We sell a lot of clothing. There's not a lot of clothing usually that's going to be great for auctions. So we tend to do more buy it nows. And part of this too, guys, is because remember, we live in an instant gratification society. People want what they want and they want it now. And a lot of people these days, even though eBay started as an auction site, they do a lot more buy it nows now than they did in the past. People want to buy their item and not wait. They just want to get it. And if you have an auction up, they have to wait. They have to wait how many ever days you have the auction running for until the auction ends. Plus, the other part of that is too, auctions still, I don't know now if you can require immediate payment on auctions once it ends. I'm not sure. But it used to be in the past you cannot. Somebody in the chat can maybe tell me. So I always hate waiting. You put something on an auction for a week and then somebody gets the high bid and then they don't pay, which takes another 2 or 3 days to open up a case and reopen. So now you've waited like 10 days. Mm-hmm. So I think that's another reason auctions can be tricky for certain items. And I just like buy it now is a lot better overall.
Well, and on auctions too, don't you dare start something off at 99 cents if you're not prepared to let it go for 99 cents.
Right.
How often have we heard of people that, especially new resellers that have an auction
right.
and they want to follow the herd and start it at 99 cents, but then their time frame comes to a close and guess what? It's still at 99 or somebody bet. They put their bid in such a small increment. Okay, maybe it's $1.50, but you know what I mean? Like don't lowball yourself or start behind.
No, it's a great point.
If you're not prepared to let it go for that amount.
Absolutely, and that's a great point. I know people say that start at 99 cents to generate interest.
No,
you may only get an interest of 1, and they may buy it and then they'll sell it for what it's really worth. So be careful with that. Number 4 is profit potential. So this goes back to sort of the time versus energy versus money invested in an item. Are you going to make enough to justify the cost to acquire it, the work to list it, photograph it, pack it, ship it, deal with any questions? And we've talked about on this channel in other videos about what's your time worth and how to sort of figure all that out. But I'm just going to say that profit potential is different for everybody. Some people don't like to sell anything unless they can make 20, 30, 40, 50, even $100 profit on it. Other people are happy with, smalls, making 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 bucks profit, going forward. But whatever the profit potential is of the item, you've got to weigh off, you're investing your money, you're investing your time, you may be even investing a listing if you're at your listing cap or near it and you can't put up more listings. So now you've got it listed and you got to make sure that it's going to sell, in a reasonable amount of time for a reasonable amount of money. So profit potential is important, guys. And I think a lot of resellers will, they kind of get caught up in that sometimes. We talked about this recently that, you buy it for $5 and look, it sells for 20. Right. And it might sell for 20 and maybe that $15 gross profit's a good amount for you. But if that takes 6 months or a year to get it, maybe it's not, or maybe it sells for $10. You're like, it's $5, but you're investing $5 to get it, and it's going to take a little while. It just depends sort of on what the potential of it is, but you need to know that number. I mean, you've got to have an idea. You can't just look at what they're listed at. That's a rookie mistake we didn't put on there. People look at what things are listed for, and then don't look at what they've actually sold for, or if they've sold at all recently. So.
Well, and a classic mistake on that is just because it's new with tags, a lot of people want to go, right away with what it supposedly originally sold for, right?
Right. Right. No, that's true. Number 5, you priced your item too low. So I was thinking about this one today, and I know a lot of people out there love the kind of quick flip model. Price it low is their idea. It'll sell quicker, which that doesn't always work, by the way. But even leaving that aside, you kind of got to do a little bit of a calculation here in your head. Maybe you do it on a spreadsheet. But if you know you can price an item at $20 and you think it'll reasonably sell within 1 month, is it worth it to price it at $30 and sell it in 45 days? Maybe it is, because remember this, guys, no matter what your item sells for, whether it sells for $10 or $10,000, you still have put time and energy and you've spent money to acquire that item along the way. So you've got to think about, what is all that worth to you, and is it worth waiting perhaps a little longer for the right buyer to come along? Because the reality is, just because you price it higher doesn't necessarily mean it will take longer to sell. Sometimes there is a higher end niche for certain items or certain categories of items, and pricing in that niche is still going to find a buyer just as fast as pricing sort of in the middle of that curve, or even at the lower end. It's not going to take any longer. So I always say, don't sell yourself short. Don't sell your items short either. If you truly believe, this is the thing. If you look at an item or a bunch of listings, you do a search, you're going to see the highest priced one that's sold recently. Now think about, what was that person's mindset when they listed it? Because they are currently, in the last 90 days, we'll say, the highest sold. Somebody's got to be the highest, right? At any given time, there's going to be the highest sold listing. Now, we don't know all the circumstances, but they probably thought, well, this is higher than a lot of the other ones that are selling right now, but I think it's worth it for whatever reasons, and they got it. They became the highest in those 90 days, and that's something we forget. Why would you sell yourself short thinking yours can't be the highest? Maybe it can be, and I'm guilty of this, by the way, this mistake, guys, not always pricing at the high end, because I'm like, oh, I don't think it'll sell. I don't know about that. I think there's been plenty of times where that perception of value is there when you price it a bit higher, and it's a good item. I'm not saying put a piece of junk up at the top, but I think there's something to that.
Well, and you have your days, truth be told, where you just want to get through it. I'm not going to look. And so you kind of go with...
I'm like, it's going to be in this range. So.
Well, 'cause, when you sell as many jeans as we sell, you kind of get in a habit of,
right.
This lucky, go for this, whatever.
Right.
But you actually, I'm going to tell on you. What do you remember what jeans recently? And it's not always that you did something wrong necessarily. Let's say if you list an item and it sells an hour later. The demand just could be that high for your item. So
sure.
Don't get me wrong. But just the other day, you listed some jeans and they sold so quick. And I remember you saying, I should have priced them higher. Do you remember what they were? I can't remember. Yeah. I wish I could remember.
I think I priced them too low.
So they're not necessarily mistakes that he made when he was just a wee lad.
No, I still do it every once in a while. But I have gotten more diligent about looking up brands and kind of sales recently, even of brands and fits and models that I know pretty well, because sometimes you get surprised. It's like you looked at it 6 months ago and it was this. But now the market's changed and evolved a little bit.
Well, and we just talked to Tiffany about that. Remember, it was some shoe. We were having this shoe debate.
Yeah.
True story. And you kind of have to refresh yourself and your brand knowledge, because just because, these Gucci whatevers were hot a year ago.
Right.
So I get that some brands or some years, vintages, whatever, will be timeless. But just because these Gucci sandals were the bomb a year ago does not mean they're going to be at the high end of the market this year.
Right.
So it would behoove you, especially if you're in a niche, to stay up to date and educated and do exactly what you just said. Look up what's selling, because, if lucky was your thing, doesn't mean it's always going to be there for you. So. And
it's interesting. Someone in the chat was just talking about True Religion, which True Religion as a brand has filed for bankruptcy. Now, I don't know if they'll go completely out of business, but we've talked about this before, this idea that because they file for bankruptcy, and if they do go out of business, those prices may actually go up. because when supply shrinks and demand still stays constant, price goes up. I mean, that's basic economics. So we'll see if that happens or not. We don't know if they'll go completely out of business. They might not. They may stay in business and reorganize. That happens a lot of times. But, True Religion has fallen on hard times because of their stores, and the malls have been not as profitable as they thought. Malls are tricky business to be in these days because online has taken so much of the market. So I think that, going, kind of looking, always having an eye towards those sort of things is really important with, whatever it is you're selling, especially when you talk about fashion, which does change a lot. All right, you can also be priced too high.
Yep.
Here's the
other end of the price
this is like Goldilocks. You want that perfect, not too hot, not too cold, just right. So you could be priced too high. If you're way above the market, whatever has been, you've got a tough sell ahead of you sometimes because people aren't going to understand, or maybe they just don't think it's worth that. Like, especially when you're pricing very basic, common, commodity type items like a lot of clothing. Like if you're pricing brands that are commonly found at the big discounters and you're pricing them, double what any have sold for instance, going to be tough to sell that. You may be pricing them above more of what they sold for than new. Yeah. Which is almost impossible. Be careful with that.
I remember we were looking up something the other day, and I had to do a double take because it was a pre-owned pair of jeans, and the price on pre-owned rivaled what they were currently going for.
Yeah, it was crazy. I had somebody on a best offer not long ago. I can't remember the pair of, I think it was shoes, actually. No, it was jeans. It was jeans. And I had them priced, and they were a nice pair of men's jeans, but it wasn't a super high-end brand. I think I had them at $30. And, or no, I had them at 40. They had offered me, like 30, and I had met in the middle at 35, and they said, hey, just so you know, these brand new are going for $39.99.
Oh, I didn't know
and
that.
I was like, okay, fair point. Because at first I declined their offer, and they sent me a message back and said, just so you know, and I verified it. They were, and I'm like, that's a fair point. 30 is a fair price.
30 for the win.
Let's move on,
Oh, that's a cool story.
Yeah. So, you can be priced too high in certain cases, too. It's obviously, there's not always a magic point, but you've got to think about that. Number 7. I put up 8.
There were 7. Well, there's 7. 5 and 2.
There you go. Consistent listing. This could be the most important one, and probably the one I'm the most guilty of breaking on a regular basis.
And still to this day, right? We know it's a thing.
Yes. If you are not consistently listing, you could argue even every day, in a lot of cases, you are most certainly hurting yourself in the eBay search algorithms. Can I prove it? No. Do I have data to back it up? But everything I've experienced and every other reseller out there suggests that consistent listing helps your sales. How do we know this? Because when you're not selling things and then you start listing and things start selling again, it's not even the items that you're listing that are selling often. It's items you've had listed, which suggests that your listings are having to somewhat get re-indexed by eBay's algorithms and so on, perhaps pushed up in search, pushed more across the platform. People are seeing them new again. They're up on the first page, the second page, whatever. There's something that's going on there that when you're consistently listing, you're forcing eBay to keep taking a look at your listings overall because it's impacting items that are selling that are not even the ones you just listed. Again, can't prove it 100%, but all evidence suggests that that is the case, and I have yet to see any evidence to suggest otherwise. So what were you going to say?
And I would take it a step further. Merch. Our t-shirt, our print-on-demand t-shirts, every time, like if we, let it go, if we don't put up a new design or something, sales will fall. Every single time we list something new, we sell a shirt. Yep. Not the shirt necessarily we just posted.
Usually not.
Yeah, most often not. But it's, it must be the gods of online resale or selling or whatever. There's something about the algorithms that I think a majority of us will agree that there's just something to it. You either show up or you become obsolete.
It makes sense. I mean, we see this in so many areas of society. Think about a car dealership. Think about a Honda dealership. If a Honda dealership brought in all the 2017 cars and then never put out a 2018 or a 2019 or a 2020 of anything, how frequented would their showroom and their lots be after a while? People would get used to it. So their sales would start dropping. And I think eBay is the same way. They look at it as we've got to keep new items being recirculated because buyers want to see new things. They want to see more choices. They want to see the same choices over and over. I mean, that just sort of makes sense. So if I were running eBay, I would absolutely reward sellers who list on a regular basis. I would absolutely reward them with increased exposure. I would design my algorithms in a way so that it would go back and keep looking at their listings and therefore maybe pushing them up in search some. I would do it, and because it just makes great business sense. So you got to keep listing, guys. You got to have some sort of plan there. Maybe it's not every day. Maybe it's every other day. But if you do it, you will see, better results. And like I said, full disclosure, I am very much guilty of getting involved in other projects and not doing that as often as I should. And it definitely hurts sales, for sure.
Well, and if it sounds too good to be true or pie in the sky or whatever, run your own experiment.
Yeah, try that. You can. All right, number 8. We're getting down to it, guys. 3 to go. Not utilizing best offer. And this is more of a tactical one, but think about the mindset of buyers. They really want to have a situation where they can feel like they're getting a deal, and best offer kind of does that for them, because with best offer, they're able to, at least think that they got a better deal than the price was on sale for, because a lot of times they do. It also gives you a way to identify a buyer who is interested in your item. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say in the chat and so on, well, I do best offer and I get all these lowball offers. Guess what? I get them too. And I just decline them. But I can't tell you how many of those have turned into a sale, because people want to test it. If you put an item up there for $30 and you don't have any floor on your best offer, like the least amount you'll take, and somebody offers you $12, you've got two options. You can get offended, which is wasted energy in my opinion, or you can look at it as, I'm going to decline it, but if they come back with another offer, we're going to see if we can meet in the middle. Like, I usually wait for that second offer from the same person, because you can see in the offer screen, the history, and just come back and give them a counter and say, hey, I can't go that low. I could do this, and try to make a deal. They've seen your item. They're interested in it. They want a great deal. You want a great deal. There's no reason to get offended by it. I mean, that's just silly.
Well, and some folks don't like the interaction, okay? They don't like talking to people. Fine. Then set your threshold. Set your lowest. And then it's an automatic thing, right? You don't even have to talk to people. Right?
True. That's true. You
Make it automatic. If you want to have that option, here's a bonus for you. Yeah. You don't have to exchange info or emails or contact with people. Just make it automatic. Done.
And Sarah says in the chat, one of her reservations about it is that you cannot require immediate pay with best offer. That is true. And I've had plenty of times where I have met in the middle on a price and the buyer did not pay. That is absolutely going to happen. It is definitely a challenge of this method. I would suggest to you that you set up the unpaid item assistant that eBay offers you to automatically open cases after 2 days, which is what I do. That's plenty of time for people to pay, and then it just relists your item. So I would do that, and if you're gonna use it, use unpaid item assistant. That will handle that, and then you'll move on. You don't have to go through all these steps. You want to automate as much as you can, and that's just, I think, the best way to handle people who don't pay. But there's other methods as well.
Yeah, and we've had a great experience with best offer.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Overall, it's been great. Like, I've made far more best offers and completed far more sales than we've had buyers who didn't pay. Far more. And I tend to think, would I have still gotten those sales without it? I don't think so. I don't think so, because that buyer wanted a deal. They wanted to feel like they're getting a deal. This is kind of like going to It's kind of like when you go to the yard sale, too, and you want to buy something from somebody, and they've got their stuff and they're in love with it, and they want to stay up real high, but you want to be down here because you're trying to make money on it. And it's kind of the reverse of that, though. Like, they're the buyer, and they're trying to get a great deal from you, and you're trying to make a lot of profit. So it's just kind of flipping the script. What are you saying?
It's instant gratification, right? They're shopping. eBay's got a couple things for sale, right? So if they don't have an opportunity to make you an offer on your item, guess what? They're going to keep shopping.
Yep.
So why not, cast that net a little wider by giving them an option?
Yeah. And someone said, well, sometimes I counter an offer and they don't want to play along. They never respond or flat refuse it. Fine, move on.
It's not personal. It's just business.
Yeah, they're not. This is the thing. Remember, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the item, the offer. It's not the same. But if you let it become personal and take it that way, you're going to feel like, well, why aren't they taking it? It's a fair offer. I can't believe it. Why? You start making it about your own personal validation, and that's a mistake. It's business. It is not personal. So,
somebody asked if you have best offer on everything.
Just about, I think. There's probably a few I don't for various reasons, but I try to do that now anymore best I can. And, I just accept them or not as I go.
Okay, next.
Number 9. We're almost at the end. I love this one, and this one is about not enough inventory. Now, what does that mean? Suppose you have a sales goal, and let's say you've got 100 listings on eBay, and you're selling one a day, which would be 30% a month, which is pretty good. But you're only making $5 profit on that one, let's say. So you're only netting $150 profit a month, 30 sales. And you want to make $300. Maybe you're saving for a trip to Wyoming. See what I did there? So you're saving for a trip and but you need to make double that amount. You don't have enough listings up to do it. Now you could finagle your price and run markdowns and do some things to improve your sell-through, but sell-through is not infinite, guys. You can only reach a certain percentage with most categories. You're not going to just, if the category average is to sell through at 1% of the inventory every day, it's going to be hard for you to sell through at 5%. I mean, that's a big statistical difference, really difficult, and still maintain good profitability given some of our other tips. So I think if in some cases you've got to increase the number of listings you have if you want to increase the sales you're getting. I mean, it's not a strict 1-to-1 ratio as many people have pointed out, and I would argue that's true as well. It's not always going to be true that if you have 100 listings up, that if you go to 200 listings, you're suddenly going to double your sales. Not necessarily. You might not. You may even more than double your sales depending on, because you're going to get better at selling on eBay too. Don't forget the value of that. You're going to get better at lots of these other tips and our final tip as well. But you're going to get better at those things, and that's going to help your sell through. It's going to help your profitability. You're going to get better at picking items and finding them that sell for good amounts and sell them the time you need them to. But if you don't have enough inventory listed, it's really hard to make certain sales goals. I mean, it's just a challenge. Now, what's enough inventory? That's a whole nother debate. And it just is based around a lot of factors, certain categories, how quick they sell, how much they sell for, how cheap you can get the items you're selling, how quick you can get them up. I mean, those are all, a lot of different factors there. But I just think that you always have to remember, if you don't have enough inventory up, it's going to be very difficult to hit your goals in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say something.
Well, no, when I first read that, I mean, not enough inventory, I hearken back to the multi-quantity listings and things and being on top of actual inventory numbers. And that's a whole other discussion. Yeah.
And Susanna, hey Susanna, how are you? Says, if you have items with a high profit margin, you don't need a large inventory. Well, and it's also even more so than the margin, it's just the actual dollars. Mm-hmm. Because if you sell a $1 item for $5, that's a great profit margin, but it's not a lot of money. It's only a $4 gross sales, or $4, not net sales, but operating sales. So revenue. So if you can make a lot of dollars on a specific item, of course, but with most people who are selling on eBay, they're selling a lot of smalls. Clothing, in a lot of cases, is smalls. It's not going to be big, huge $100, $150, $200 sales. It's going to be $20 sales, $18 sales, $26 sales, $30 sales. So your margin might still be great, but your actual dollars that you make are not going to be huge on most of those items. Even if you sell a $1, I mean, imagine this. Imagine you can buy every clothing item you get for $1 and sell it for $30, right? So that's $29, profit there minus your expenses. Let's say even you're still netting like $22 per item. To make $1,000 a month, you still got to sell 50 of them almost. Mm-hmm. So, which is, not nothing. And that would be an extreme example, by the way, I just gave you, that you could find $1 item after $1 item and sell it for $30. I mean, it happens, but it's not common necessarily. So I think a lot of times you got to think about not just the margin, but also how many dollars you're making per item that you're selling. It's all part of this equation, guys. And it's not like any one piece of it, is necessarily more important than another. You have to kind of put it all together to figure out what makes sense for you.
This is my, the last one, number 10, is my second favorite mistake of all time. Also unavoidable and a big fat pet peeve of
Unavoidable
mine.
or avoidable?
Unavoidable.
Avoidable.
Avoidable.
If it was unavoidable, we'd be in trouble.
It's a good thing that this is a written item and not a verbal one. So number 10 is writing a poor title. And you guys think we're joking about when we say, check your spelling. How many times have we seen something spelled incorrectly or labeled incorrectly? Like, that's another thing. Like, it's a pair of Luckies, but it says Levi's.
Yeah.
Or it's a pair of jeans that are maternity, and the word maternity is not in the title.
I told you I was going to do it.
Make the sound effect again so they can hear it.
I can't do it.
He
very
didn't
loud.
really flick me. I double dared him to flick me.
So that's an inside joke, but inside story there. But writing a poor title, to Karen's point, yeah, and there's so much that goes into a title, but yet it gets screwed up so often. I can't believe in 2017 we still see crappy titles.
It's like the simplest and the most complex part of your listing all at the same time.
Yeah, and you got to almost think about it like it's not a sentence. It's more like bullet points in a row, because you're really thinking about what is someone searching for that will help them find this item. How would they search for it? And guys, people don't search certain things. They don't search for good condition jeans.
Cool
They don't
jeans,
search for an awesome shirt. They're going to search for, I'm not going to say no one would ever search for those things, but the vast majority of people who go onto eBay and buy anything, they're going to search by fit, by model, by specifications, by maybe the year it was made, sometimes by even where it was made. They're going to, by color, by size, all these things, by brand. That's very important if you're doing clothing. They're going to search for those types of terms, guys, because that's how you shop. Like if you go into an auto parts store and you need to buy some wiper blades for your car, they're going to have a little book there, or it's probably digital at this point now. They're going to have a little digital display there, and you're going to look up your car by the make and model, and it's going to tell you what wiper blades fit your car. And then it's going to tell you which ones they have that you can go purchase and will fit your car. You're not going to go in there and say, oh, I want really cool wiper blades. You don't. Like, you need wiper blades that will actually fit your car and move the water off of your windshield.
So I'm making myself laugh. So another example, there would be a huge difference between a Dodge and a Doge, right? Just saying. But how many times, like, it's a thing. Like, some people actually snipe listings, meaning they try to buy them at a low price, snatch them, and they purposefully, we kind of did some research on that, where they purposefully search out titles where they've misspelled the brand of whatever it is. It's not just clothing. It's all kind of things. And so how much would that suck if your listing just sat there and here you are beating yourself up because you think, this awesome item isn't going anywhere? Well, newsflash, you spelled Levi's with a T instead of a V, and nobody can see it because it's spelled wrong.
Letty's?
Whatever. But yeah, like if you don't put, and somebody mentioned in the chat that, or putting maternity in the title when it's a pair of men's jeans. Yeah, probably not going to be searched by Man of La Mancha.
Right. So I think that, this idea about the title is critically important because it's how people search things. And also don't forget that stuffing keywords into that title is just as bad. If you're selling Levi's, I'm not going to put in there 7 for All Mankind, Miss Me, a bunch of other titles in there too, because that's not what they are. And that can actually get your account in trouble. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to stuff keywords in there too, just to try to catch everybody in.
That's a big one. I was looking for a pair of jeans for you. Your favorite Luckies or whatever for personal, and it came up like where someone had done that, where they had put every cool brand, BKA, Miss Me, Lucky, Levi's, all in the same description, and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, I know. And sometimes people will get away with that, guys, and you'll still see that they sold the listing, but that still doesn't mean you should do it. Don't do it, because you absolutely can get your account suspended.
Oh yeah, just because other kids are doing it doesn't mean you should do it. I agree.
Yeah. So that was basically, guys, we had all 10 tips there, and you can scroll back in this video if you're just watching now, and start at the beginning, because I think a lot of those, some of them you probably already knew, maybe some of them you've done before, maybe some of them you haven't, but I think it's always good to remind yourself about all those, because I have found myself in various times in this evolution as a reseller, sometimes doing one and then, oh, I can't do that. And I'll kind of readjust and not do it for a while, and then sort of it'll creep back in if I'm not careful. Like with pricing of jeans, I'm like, I got lazy there for a while and thought, oh, I know what the price is of all jeans and what they'll sell for. That kind of can change over time in certain, especially with brands that you don't sell very often. So I think that's very, very important to always go back and look at pricing. That's definitely are you too low, are you too high, and what's your profit potential. So Sarah says, not dealing with issues immediately. Number 11.
Oh, yeah, because it'll fester and it'll get worse. You're absolutely right, Sarah. Just as painful as it might seem in the moment, like, are there parents in the chat by any chance? Like, no. I can't tell my kid I can't tell you how often I tell him, just tell the truth right out of the gate, or deal with it right away, or put your dish in the dishwasher now, not a month from now, and it's going to have all kind of things growing in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But good point. So it's bing, bing, bing.
Yeah. And
Q&A time.
Yeah. Ben said, I've been adding alternative shipping options to some of my lower price listings I can afford to lose. I tried to find a list of problem countries to avoid, but couldn't find one. Problem countries. I don't know. I do the global shipping program, and I don't think I have any countries excluded.
Even I did GSP. I sent Star Wars Band-Aids to Japan and didn't have an issue.
Yeah, I just wouldn't worry too much about that. It can happen that somebody could scam in a country, but you've got protections, through PayPal and so on, in some cases. One thing too, this happened to my niece, poor Katie. We always use her for examples, but she was given an offer for something and somebody bought it, but she didn't have immediate payment on it because it was an auction, and they hadn't actually paid. So she shipped it, then they didn't pay, and they basically did scam her. That was not another country. That was right here in America. So that can happen anywhere. You always want to make sure the funds are there and that the purchase has gone through and that you are actually clear to ship that item. Never ship an item without getting payment. Oh. Never, never, never. I would never do that.
Oh, you're talking about the great cell phone debacle.
Yeah, it was a phone, and it was like $500. It wasn't a little amount, so
that was just, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I felt really bad for her, and she learned a valuable lesson, but it was a tough lesson to learn, and hopefully none of you guys will have to learn that lesson to that degree. A $500 mistake.
Loss. Yeah. True.
Let's see what other questions we had here.
Somebody wanted you to decide. I think they handled it in the chat, but somebody asked to define sell-through. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, and different people give a different percentage for that. I like to look at it this way. I like to look at the total number of completed listings. And if you pull up completed listings over, I think it's 90 days it defaults to, it'll also show you the ones that sold. So let's say you got 100 completed listings and 30 of them were sales. That's a 30% sell-through in those 90 days. So I like to do it that way. Other people will look at it as total number of sold listings in 90 days versus total number of items listed right now. I don't like that method because you're looking at listings that are up right now. You're not looking at ones that were up at the time necessarily when the item's sold. So I think for me, it's better to look at total number of completed listings as the denominator of the equation, and the number of items, the number of listings sold in that time is the numerator. And you do that division, and that gives you the sell-through percentage over that time. And then you get an idea. I mean, it's tricky because it's always in flux. Listings are ending, new listings are coming in. So that number's always going to be a moving target. It's never going to sit still exactly, but that's how I like to think about it.
Well, and if it matters to you, and if you hear people talking about their sell-through rate, make sure you're comparing apples to apples. It came up just a week or so ago where somebody gave, this high percentage rate, but they were basing it on the bigger piece. Like some people do it based on overall, and then that smaller number, like clothing resellers, our sell-through tends to be 1 to 3% on average, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lower number, but that's per day is what that number indicates.
Right, right.
So, there's all kind of variables that go into that as well. So when you're talking about sell-through, just make sure you're talking about.
Yeah, and this is the other thing I would say about sell-through, guys. Whatever method you use to figure it out, stay with that method and compare your results to your results. That's all that matters, because if you become a better and better reseller, then it's going to show in your sell-through. You're going to get better and better sell-through percentages. You're going to sell for higher dollar amount, assuming you're selling the same items. You're going to sell for higher amounts. You're going to write better titles, better photos, better listings, everything. And that's what matters. It really doesn't matter if your sell-through is mirroring the market or not necessarily, because there could be times that you'll be below the market and times you'll be above the market for various reasons that have nothing to do with the market. And the market is huge. The market is a good average to look at. But, as Stephen Wright says, half of the people you know are below average. Which is a great quote.
Please nobody laugh at that joke, because we'll be stuck in Stephen Wrightville for the rest of the day.
And I don't strive to be just average. What I really strive to do, though, is to beat my own numbers, because I think that's really what's important, to always be improving your own results against your own results. So you could look at this September versus last September, or you could look at this September versus August. You could look at this quarter versus last quarter, this year versus last year. All kinds of different ways to do it. But whatever you do, always think the only comparison you really have to make here is to yourself and your own results, because that is always going to be the most applicable set of circumstances, because you have a consistent, evolution as a reseller. So that's how I do it, or what I look at the most.
Well, what about Kelly's theory? Why don't you address
What was her
that?
theory?
That can be our last question. What if the more, in regard to keyword spamming,
keyword spamming, push your item lower?
Actually bring it lower.
Yeah, these search engines have gotten smarter, right?
Because you're getting more clicks maybe, but less sales.
Yeah, somebody talked about that in a video back a few months ago. And the idea being that if your item is getting seen a lot but not selling, then it is perhaps that whatever it is you're showing is drawing people in, but then you're not adequately explaining what it is you're giving them, or it's the wrong price, or your pictures aren't good, or like something is wrong with your listing once you get them there. So yeah, you've written this spammy keyword title, perhaps, and gotten their eyeball, but you're not getting them to sell. So therefore, Cassini looks at that and says, well, your amount of views is way higher than everybody else's, but your items aren't selling, so we're going to drop you down in search. If I was writing a search engine, that's what I would do. I'm not gifted enough to know how to do that, but that would be a way to combat keyword stuffing if you were writing that kind of program, I would think. It sort of makes sense.
Well, and how often have we as listers or resellers been drawn into a same idea here, a photo that had, something random as their opening shot, or, some woman's bottom or something, or top or something, and that got your attention. Well, it's not that that they're selling, people. So that could be another instance. So that's an interesting theory, Kelly. I think there's something to that. And hey, Wes, I did not want to let it go by that your wife did her first listing last night. I think
congratulations.
That is awesome. So please let her know that we just think that's so cool.
Great. She's off on a fun journey.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, guys. Well, listen, that's going to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Please check out the description below for all kinds of helpful links to all kinds of stuff, really. And consider subscribing to the channel.
Yes, and sharing the message with your peers.
We're coming up on 10,000.
Oh,
that is very exciting.
We went to sleep and and then there it was.
And there it was.
And we have no idea what we're going to do about that.
Nope.
So if anybody has any ideas, it's
leave them
really
down below.
Close.
Leave us a comment, guys. We always love to hear from you. And I hope you have a great rest of your Monday.
Yes, most definitely. This is Karin.
And Prof Sales.
Saying good sales to you.